Welcome to a conversation with some of the top women leaders at Cactus. Timed with International Women's Day, this audio episode moves beyond token gestures to explore the authentic experiences of women in senior leadership at Cactus. With women holding key positions and making up a significant part of our workforce, we aim to uncover the secret behind our gender-agnostic work culture aimed at delivering world-class services to our clients. Today we have with us Yashmi, Yasmin and Nitya, three of the top women leaders at Cactus. Yashmi, why don't you go first?
Thanks, Aparna. I'm Yashvi, and I have been with Cactus for 20 years now. I oversee global HR, which includes hiring, onboarding, performance management, compensation and rewards, retention, leadership development, and my overarching role is to be the custodian of Cactus culture.
Wow, custodian of Cactus culture. That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Yashmi, for being here and giving us your valuable time today. Yasmin, why don't you share with us next? What is it that you do at Cactus?
Hi, Aparna. I've been with Cactus for 15 years now. And while I currently oversee the employee experience and digital transformation portfolios, over the past 15 years, I've done 7 different jobs. And that's also one of the reasons why I've been here as long as I have. So it's been an exciting journey. So many different aspects to the way I've been able to build my career. But currently, I'm focusing on how technology can really be a bridge for all cactusins, as we like to call ourselves, to reach their highest potential.
Yeah, cactusins is one of my favorite terms. I love calling myself that. And Nitya, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, Aparna. I've been with Cactus for close to 11 years now. I think it's going to be 11 years in March. Yeah. So I head the skill and knowledge management team. Apart from training for our delivery teams, I support new service development, process development and improvements, as well as overall quality improvement measures for our services, client communication, etc.
So you see both sides of the coin, and we'll get right into it. And I'm going to start with you, Yashmi, because you are the custodian of Cactus culture. One of my favorite things about having joined Cactus full time, I started off as somebody who was part time. One of my favorite things about Cactus is the fact that as a 40-something woman who's never really been exposed to corporate culture, I was 100% hired clearly for what I bring to the table, irrespective of my gender, irrespective of what my background was. It was very clearly my skill set and what I could bring to the table. And it boosted my self-esteem a lot, and it made me feel quite good about myself. And I know that from speaking to peers and friends who are in the same circumstances, I know that this is not a very common thing, right? And I also love the fact that Cactus has like a fully remote culture. So I feel like somehow that has something to do with this, but I don't know if I'm right. So Yashmi, can you take us through this thing of how Cactus became like this fully remote organization and also this work culture of being really, really flexible for women employees?
Sure. So, right since our inception, which is about 23 years into our journey, I think we've always had a very flexible work culture. And the foundation of that flexibility is our trust in people. It always starts with trust. So, our focus is always on the outcomes more than the amount of time that people spend at work. So when pandemic happened and all of us were compelled to work remotely, Cactus, which always had a very remote friendly culture, we actually went back to the drawing board and started thinking about how we could really use this opportunity to become a fully remote organization. And pandemic was an evidence of that, because 100% of the organization was working remotely, and we were able to do everything that we had always done while people were working remotely. So we use that as an opportunity to really make transition to becoming a fully remote organization. But if I had to really go back to the objectives of why we became remote, I think you should know that almost 55% of our workforce is women, and almost the same statistics is reflected in when it comes to leadership or people playing managerial roles. So one of the objectives that we had was, how do we really become a workplace which is able to give more time back to people. When you work remotely, you save a lot of time which you otherwise spend on commuting. Secondly, when you work remotely, it gives you control over your schedule. You can choose to kind of design your work day around your personal needs, and you can pace yourself. You can choose to kind of take breaks during different parts of the day and decide, how you want to be productive, effective, while taking care of your own responsibilities. And the third and the most important thing that you would have noticed, Aparna, is that a lot of women end up compromising on their career because they often put their family before themselves, and they end up relocating when their family relocates to another city, another country. Being a fully remote organization, now it is possible for women at Cactus to take their careers to wherever they go. So it gives them a certain career mobility. And like you earlier described, we also have various options that women can choose from, which is full-time role, contractual roles, freelance roles. So there are so many options that women can choose from, that it has become possible for people to kind of continue with their career regardless of which location they are working from. So this has not only meant more happier, more engaged workforce, especially women who get more affected because of the whole return to work policy, but it has really helped us as organization to engage people, to retain people, and be able to achieve our vision and goals much faster than other organizations.
Beautifully clear, take on what I asked you. And I love that 55% majority of the workforce is women. Next question is for you, Yasmin, to what you said about having navigated 7 roles over 15 years. Wow. Like, my head is spinning even just thinking about it. Like, you've probably seen Cactus kind of evolve over the years, so to speak, a little more than a decade. And how do you think our work model and the fact that, we're a fully digital organization, so all of this digitization, how do you think it has possibly shifted what are the traditional gender roles? How does it enable? I know that Yashmi spoke a little bit about this, but from your perspective of the employee experience, how do you think it has especially helped women to take more risks with their career and really grow and thrive, as opposed to literally just survive and do what needs to be done?
Yeah, I think drawing from some of the things that Yashmi has already touched upon, I want to start by saying that Cactus has always been a high trust organization. And by that, I mean that, you know, the trust is in Cactusans, because we hire for high integrity, high level of expertise, and, just capabilities for the role that someone is applied for. We're not hiring for, any peripheral reasons that certain organizations may feel like they need to hire. So, given that that is at the center, we're trusting people. We've hired people after rigorous processes. We must trust their capabilities. That is how Cactus has always, worked with Cactusans. And because of that high trust, personally, I can say, Aparna, I've always been encouraged every time I wanted to take a risk, and I wanted to make a switch in my career, or even if I had to look back at, my first application to a managerial role when I had zero managerial experience, I had managers and teammates who were willing to, give me a leg up when I went ahead and shared my interest in wanting to do that instead of scaring me with the potential pitfalls of doing that. So Cactus always really, like, encourages you to punch above your weight if that's something you want to do. And that I know for a fact has only amplified after we went remote. So our operating model is remote first, which means that our infrastructure automatically becomes digital, right? So you no longer necessarily go to an office every day. We do have office spaces because we do need to come together occasionally, and work together, collaborate in person. Um, but if you're primarily working from your home, your digital infrastructure needs to be very robust. You need to be able to work together as team members, as folks, who are part of an organization and a larger community. And uh, after we went remote, our hiring has definitely become far more diverse. So, obviously, when you are working in an office first environment, you're limited to hiring for talent in and around the vicinity of your office space, right? And when we went remote, that was no longer the shackle that we had to be tied down to. You were able to hire across the country, and that gave us access to talent in both the really highly specialized services and solutions that we offer. So you have medical writers, you have, folks like Nitya themselves who've done their PhDs, and they have so much wealth of expertise to offer in a very niche industry that we operate in. We have so many women in technology. And I know that in these two industries in particular, when you talk about STEM and when you talk about tech, in both STEM and tech, the usual gripe is that there's not enough representation of women. And at Cactus, actually, that does not hold true. And I think the remote operating model has a lot to do with that because of the reason that Yashmi mentioned earlier, where you are able to stay in the workforce, being highly qualified, because you don't have to choose between career and personal priorities or family priorities. So I think just that opens up possibilities for women. It opens up possibilities for Cactus because Cactus now has access to, um, you know, just people who are not necessarily, you know, limited to the Mumbai area, which is where our office used to be previously.
Now we go to you, Nitya. I mean, I have a lot of things that I really, really like about Cactus. I think one of my personal favorite things is I'm a lifelong learner. I love learning something new every day, and I love the fact that Cactus has such a really strong learning culture, right? A training culture, a learning culture, and you're constantly upskilling yourself or you're learning something new every day. And I know that you play a big part in that. I know that we have a gender agnostic training model, especially when we're looking at, helping freshers or helping people who are jumping in to working with Cactus in whatever role, freelance, contractual, full-time. But they're all coming from really different cultural and academic backgrounds. And I was trained. So I came in for a specific education project, and then because there was potential seen in me, I was trained, right, further. So I feel like that I would love for you to share a little bit about that. Like, how do you spot potential, one, in terms of learning and training, and then how does this gender agnostic model, how does it help?
So I think what you experienced essentially is the kind of learning environment we try to create, right? So if we identify people who share our vision in helping our customers succeed in the research space, in academia overall, and they have the smarts to be able to help us deliver our services at the highest level of quality, we definitely want to work with these individuals, right? So talent takes a priority over all else. So we obviously have different kinds of orientation programs we have for the different roles associated with our services. But I think the one we have for academic editors would be an interesting one to talk about. Academic editing also forms like one of our major service offerings. So in most industries,
if you're looking to build a career, you need degrees, maybe certain specific certifications, sometimes even years of experience before you get that dream job or you work on a project that really has, impact in your view. But for aspiring academic editors, it's a completely different story. So you don't need those specific qualifications or prior experience to kickstart your journey. For example, at Cactus, like Yasmin mentioned, we're looking, we hire with very stringent expectations and criteria, but they're all focused on what people bring to the table. And obviously, if you're looking at an academic editing role, our non-negotiables are, having a strong English language competency, being an expert in your field of study, right? So if you have these two skills, or you meet these two criteria, we can essentially get you from ground zero to, a point where you can independently deliver the services that we offer. So that is thanks to an orientation program that can actually leverage the skills you already have to build or develop a new one, right? So these orientation programs, like I said, they're different for different roles. You've experienced one that is closely related to the kind of work that you do, right? But let's say on the editing side, for example, you have to, help somebody understand what the industry or internal standards are, what our services are, what our deliverables are, what our clients require, what they expect from our services, what journals are they working with, what do these journals look for, how do we build that into what we deliver. So yes, there's a lot of learning, but we have over the years developed and fine-tuned a very systematic step-by-step learning module that basically gets you from probably not knowing anything at all about academic editing to being able to do this as a full-time career, right? So the learning also, like you said, we're in this very pro-learning environment, right? And that is true even for the technical learning or the technical training that we offer. Because the learning extends beyond the orientation program. We are in an environment where research reporting policies keep changing or vary from, let's say, even country to country. We need to be aware of what these different policies, how they affect what journals are looking for. Accordingly, how research is getting funded in universities, and accordingly what our researchers need today, what our services need to cover for. So there's a lot of learning that continues even after the basic skill has been established, because we need to ensure that we're keeping up with all of the advances happening in the industry. In terms of just the the gender agnostic aspect of the training, the program has never been designed to to focus on what people can and can't do, based on, I don't know, established societal norms or responsibilities that people may have, etc. It's always been about what their skill level is at currently, where they need to be able to deliver our services, and how do we get them from point A to point B, right? So we want to make sure that we work with the most talented people, and we understand that these talented people may come with their own unique circumstances or commitments. So it's our job to make sure that the program we design for them is flexible in terms of the helping them balance both the learning they're supposed to do as part of the program, but also everything else that they may be involved in. We need to work with people who are experts in the field, so it's highly likely that they are full-time professors, they are maybe medical professionals, so they have other commitments. And our learning journey is broken up into these self-paced modules that people can take up as and when they have the time to do it, while still maintaining some sort of
a learning trajectory with milestones where we can track somebody's progress and ensure that they are on course to completing training and be able to support our services. So by ensuring that we are taking care of their current commitments and also providing the kind of learning support they need to help work with us, I think it's a unique kind of arrangement that helps ensure that people can balance multiple things. Like, I mean, women, for example, obviously find themselves in that situation where they need to do that maybe more often than others. But irrespective of your gender, if you have multiple things going on, you want to make sure that you're able to have something going on the side along with your full-time job. This is like a great option for that, and we try to make sure that as long as you have the smarts for it, that we build something that helps you become a part of our workforce.
Super detailed answer, because I'm going to connect back to what you said about learning, about the learning culture. I'm going to come back to you, Yashmi, from the perspective of having such a varied background. Like, it's such a multicultural organization, especially because it's fully remote. Now you're hitting every corner of the country, right? And you don't know where people are coming from, what kind of backgrounds they're coming from. And it's completely merit driven, right? Which means that it's an environment where, like I said before, it's not about just surviving. It's, you really have the space to grow. It feels expansive. So I guess what I want to ask you, Yashmi, is how has this space or this expansiveness been created? Has it been a planned strategic thing, or do you think it's something that has organically evolved and developed? Because you've been with Cactus for so long, I'm sure you've seen how this spaciousness, if I can call it that, has come into play. And what's your take on that?
Even the way you articulated that question was so beautiful. Um, you're right, Aparna, that our approach to this what you call a really inclusive culture, given how diverse and how distributed we are as organization. Our approach has been very, very organic. It's less driven by programs or interventions, which I'm sure many organizations do a very good job of. For us, it has been largely organic. It is so woven into our cultural fabric. And let me give you a couple of examples. I think Yasmin briefly touched upon, how we hire. And when it comes to hiring, our focus is completely on knowledge, skills, and attitude. It's less about academics. It's less about the length of experience that you have. It's less about whether you come from XYZ industry. It's purely based on knowledge, skills, and attitude. And having said that, obviously, gender is not the factor. In fact, if I recollected right, almost 15 years ago when we were starting to work night shift. That was the first role that we were recruiting for serving our clients in the West from India. And I remember that for that night shift role, we hired a woman. Now, any organization would have thought twice before hiring a woman for a role that was so new, where the organization was just kind of starting out to work night shift. And we hired a woman. And after we hired her, we kind of set policies around, safety and drop at home and things like that. But the fact is that we did what was the right thing to do because the person had the right skills, knowledge, and attitude for the role. So we didn't go by gender, but we went by, what we thought was important for the role. So that's just an example when it comes to hiring. Another thing is, I think what is really hard coded into our culture is our guiding principles. So one of our guiding principles is to speak up and listen actively. What that does is basically make sure that women not just have seat at the table, but they also have a voice in the room. So we feel that every voice is important, and it's important that everyone finds an expression when it comes to a debate or a decision, and which is why women feel valued and heard in this environment. So again, it's something which is very, very organic. Third, if you think about, the managers, a lot of times women feel that, their career is influenced, shaped in a big way by their managers, by their leaders. And at Cactus, almost 55% of leadership and managerial roles are played by women. When you have those role models in the system, it is so organic for people to believe that they can grow in the organization, and that system itself becomes, a self-supporting system where women feel supported, they feel included, and they feel they are more optimistic about how they can grow in the organization. So for us, that has really worked very, very beautifully, and we've not felt the need to really, introduce special programs to make women feel valued. And third is the whole flexi approach, which is, again, like I said, it is built on the foundation of trust. That our approach to supporting women has been very, very one-to-one, case-to-case driven, and not so much policy driven. So our managers will go a long way to ensure that anyone who, needs certain flexibility, they want to spend less time at work, they are going through a certain stress in their life, they are at a certain life stage where, something else is more important than work, then we will curate the work schedule around needs of that team member. So I think our managers also, and the way they kind of approach these needs of women has gone a long way in women feeling supported, in women growing and thriving at Cactus. So all in all, I would say it's been a largely organic approach and less about, let's do this intervention for next 6 months, or, let's do a program. And then, we are all very excited about it when it launches, but then, over a period of time, it loses steam. For us, what has really worked is a very sustained organic approach to how women can succeed and grow at Cactus. So I remember when, I had spent a couple of years at Cactus, and it was almost 2 decades of, working overall uh, with Cactus and outside. And I was in a senior leadership role. And at that point, I really wanted to kind of slow down, take stock of what I was doing and why. And the only option that I thought of at that stage was that I will need to take a career break to be able to do what I wanted to do. So I spoke to my manager, and I expressed the need to kind of move on and take stock of my life's priorities. And at that point, my manager really understood where I was coming from, how I was feeling, and he persisted that I take sabbatical instead of taking a career break. And at that point, we didn't even have a sabbatical policy in the organization. But he took the initiative to kind of offer me sabbatical. It was not a time bound sabbatical. I could kind of take a career break for as long as I needed. And when I went back, I had so much clarity in terms of what I wanted to do with my career. If he had not persisted at that point, maybe my career journey would have looked very different. At another point, when one of my family members was going through a very critical illness, I needed to spend more time at home looking after her. And again, I was given a part-time work arrangement, which was the need of the day at that point. Again, at another time, I was feeling saturated in my role, and I was feeling, okay, I want to do something different. I want more challenge in my role. And again, I was kind of offered a more strategic and more, a role that focused more on long-term goals of the organization, considering my aspirations and interests in, what I wanted to do with my career. So I've seen my own personal experience, and it's not possible to do this very easily for someone who's in a senior leadership role because it means a certain impact on the organization. But I have seen how the organization has bent backwards um, to kind of accommodate my needs, my aspirations, my preferences. And in that sense, it also makes me feel more responsible to be able to offer this to all the women working at Cactus.
And Yasmin, you wanted to add something to that?
Yeah, and it's funnily enough maybe linked to what Yashmi also said. So again, Aparna, I think this starts at the top, and we've also been lucky to have co-founders who really don't see gender as a limiting factor to be able to achieve the goals that need to be achieved in an organization. And I think the way in which other organizations as well who are intending to have an inclusive culture can maybe take a cue from what Cactus has done so well so far is that the way in which we've been able to hire, so men hiring women hiring men, it's a sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy where we're able to hire people who are able to work with each other without gender norms and gender based biases being at all at the center of anyone's thought process. So work is what matters. The quality of work you do is what matters, like Nitya mentioned as well. And that is how a culture can really be safeguarded. So when Yashmi said she is a custodian of Cactus's culture, I think that is also the culture that she has inculcated and passed on the baton, sort of, to say to others, where the way in which we're all hiring, whether we are women, men, other genders, we're not looking um, to hire folks of certain gender. We're looking to hire people who can make a good team and help achieve the goals that we want to achieve. So it's really about how you hire and what are the expectations you're setting. And when you hire well, I think you build and you sort of grow and expand your community of well-meaning, inclusive individuals.
Nitya, you had something to add?
No, I was just thinking about what Yashmi said about how the organization has bent backwards at multiple points, critical points in her career, and kind of helped her stay on her career track, right? So I probably have a different view there of there were certain instances, I think, that like I have a team member's story, for example, where the organization didn't even have to do anything differently. It's just the provisions that exist today that made navigating certain life challenges easier. So I had somebody in my team whose mom had a really bad fall and needed round the clock care, and she had to figure out in a short period of time how to be that primary caregiver for her mom. And obviously that meant that she wouldn't probably be available at a stretch for let's say 9 hours of the day. She would need some days off, to figure out wrapping everything up here in Mumbai, relocating to Calcutta. And just the fact that, she obviously had some time off and everything, all that is a part of regular leave policy. So she was when she heard the news and she was trying to figure out with me what we could do, her first option was, maybe I can just go on a sabbatical. And I could have that conversation with her about, okay, why a sabbatical, what are you looking for? And I realized that what she needed was not even something I had to write to somebody about or get approval on or whatever, because flexible work hours are a part of the are like a given. You can work from anywhere, that's a given, right? You have the technical you have the infrastructure you need to be able to continue working regardless of where you are, regardless of what hours you're working. We have very sound async collaboration policies, right? So she was able to navigate maybe like 5 months of being a primary caregiver without it affecting her work at all, right? So it's just a testament to how strong some of the some of the organic women friendly or women friendly for policies we've been referring to, is that like once that situation came up, it didn't even require any kind of additional workarounds or permissions or anything to just help somebody navigate something so life changing.
It's bringing me to this concepts that I've been studying and learning over the last few years is, if you've heard of Gregory Bateson and Nora Bateson, it's the concept of warm data. And it talks about, because usually data statistics is, it's cold hard numbers, right? But warm data talks about data being stories, like it's individual people. And I loved what you said about not being policy driven, as an organization. And that's so beautiful, because it's very rare you hear an organization saying, oh, we are not we are not policy driven, we will take this on a case to case basis, and kind of, like you said, personalize and curate solutions for each individual employee. And I think that in itself for me is such a strong approach to decolonization. We serve the world, but we're such a beautifully decolonized organization, and I think that's lovely. And that brings me to Yasmin. And I know you work a lot with technology, and in one of our initial conversations where you said using technology as a bridge rather than as a replacement. And I love this, right? Because the world is talking about AI, and I know we've developed our own, in-house tools, which I would love for you to talk about. And this extreme level of focus on technology and digitization and AI and all of these tools, how do we then bring in that warm approach that Yashmi was talking about when she was talking about policies, not being policy driven for an organization? Then how do you bring that same warmth, that same organic approach to the technological aspect of what we do within the company? And then how does that then become a bridge, like you said, as opposed to a replacement?
I think, to just start at the basics, technology is here to serve people. There is no higher purpose for technology besides serving humans. And that is exactly what we do at Cactus. So the technology we build, whether it is the tech we are building for our customers, whether it's technology we're building for our internal stakeholders, which is, all of us Cactusins, the purpose of all the tech has to be to serve the humans for which the technology has been developed. So Clark is one such project. It's it's a program actually, and funnily enough, Clark is derived from just Clark Kent, who was Superman, came from another planet, was here to serve Earthlings. But Clark is also gender agnostic, so Clark at Cactus is not a man from Superman. But the purpose is for Clark to shape shift and take any form that can serve a Cactusan. So we build, small solutions and big solutions using AI to be able to solve problems for Cactusans, big or small. And, those problems can be, this is too boring a task to do. So I'd like for someone else to take that on, and Clark takes that on. And that can be delegated to technology. Another example is, the work that we're doing is sometimes can be amplified, because at the end of the day, AI, Gen AI technology is basically just a big pool of information that all of these millions and billions of humans have put together. And it is just a manifestation of all of those thoughts and ideas that all of us humans put out there, that is being regurgitated in various formats. So the way in which technology is used to, again, enhance our output. So we're thinking of Clark also as a partner. So if you were working on a project and you wanted to get your output to be better than it is today, technology is sort of giving you that, avenue of getting the opinions and crowdsourced views of millions of other people on the project that you're working on, so you can enhance your output, be more productive. So it is really, our core focus that anything that Clark does and anything that we do with technology at Cactus has to serve Cactusans and other people. But taking a step back, the way in which technology is also enabling Cactusans, again, just going back to the gender roles that we've discussed previously, Aparna. I think one, because we are remote first, and two, because technology is the way in which work happens for us. So we are completely digital uh, from the work that we do, our collaboration and our collaboration with our customers as well. It has subverted gender norms and gender roles entirely. So besides the fact that we discussed earlier, where women can stay in the workforce, lend their expertise to the work that we are doing, which is in a very niche industry, uh, men have been able to subvert traditional gender roles as well and be active participants in child rearing at Cactus because, our working model, our operating model allowed that. And as much as gender, norms are oppressive to women, they also come with the same level of oppression on men. And it can be really difficult sometimes to explain to your family that you have a real serious job, but you're working from home. But I think when your family begins to see the benefits of the way in which you're able to balance your priorities, earn well, have a stable job, and be able to take care of your kids and raise them, or take care of your cats and look after them like some of us do, I think that just opens up minds for so many of us and our extended family. So in a way, Cactus is touching lives beyond just Cactusans, because our families, our friend circles, they're all being shown the direction for what can be achieved if you really don't set yourself these gender-based frameworks.
And now I'm going to go to Nitya. Uh, you know, I know you're the academic here, Nitya. So you come from that background. And I know that there can be a lot of challenges within academic environments, and possibly the ones that you've seen with clients as well. So how does your client facing work balance, between delivering high quality services to our clients, but also have empathy, both for them within their really challenging academic environments as well as for the employees internally, especially when you're we work with teams globally, right? So when you're working with such diverse teams and so many different academic partners, how does that work?
Yeah, Aparna, I think that's an interesting question. It is challenging because obviously we pride ourselves in working with highly accomplished experts, right? So we have medical professionals, full-time researchers, professors, because to deliver the top tier research services that we offer, we should work with people with really deep subject matter expertise. At the same time, we recognize that these professionals have primary commitments, like you mentioned, that sometimes must take precedence, right? So it's our experts delivering the service may have the same challenges around, let's say, getting papers published, etc., while they help our clients, navigate the same challenges. Um, Obviously, it's important from a business point of view to balance quality with empathy. So we need to ensure that our business processes and systems are strong enough for us to be able to accommodate the challenging schedules that our experts have, while at the same time we are sticking to the commitments we are making to our clients, with all of the high stakes work that they are doing, right? So we try to do this through our workflow management systems to a great extent. So we have those flexible work arrangements where people can choose the nature of association they want to keep with Cactus, how many hours they want to dedicate to Cactus work, etc. As experts. So the flexible working style allows for our experts to let's say indicate um, their unavailability in advance. We also have a workflow system that allows our experts to pick and choose what they want to work on. So let's say that there is an array of assignments available, but we make the aspects of the assignment, the expectations of the client, the service requirements, the deadline for these deliverables very clear and visible.
and our experts can pick what they want to work on. In terms of making the work as easy to do as possible once they have taken something on, we have a whole bunch of resources related to the service that they are providing. We make the requirements or the preferences or reference materials for the service available along with the job details, so that everything they need to complete the assignment is at hand, right? So they don't really need to spend time trying to decipher what clients are expecting and what they need to be doing to complete an assignment. So when they do dedicate time to doing Cactus work, they have everything they need to make those few hours really count and deliver the best that they possibly can. And from our side, again, to ensure that while we offer this kind of flexibility, that quality is never compromised. We make sure that for whatever work that an expert does do with us, we have regular quality reviews. We look out for any focus areas, any areas of concern or improvement that we feel we need to work with them on, and offer guidance from team members to help them refine their skills, or even offer, again, self-paced remedial programs for them to work on these areas of improvement, so that they can continue to deliver high quality work. So at no point while we offer these flexibilities are we saying that it's okay to compromise on quality or timeliness. What we've tried to do is build systems and structures and workflows that allow us to create like a solid academic partnership where we are valuing both the excellence they bring to the table, and at the same time being very considerate about the kinds of challenges that they are probably dealing with in their academic roles.
With that, we come to the end of this very lovely conversation. Yashmi, Yasmin, Nitya, thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing your valuable time with us. Together, their diverse perspectives connect the dots between leadership, work culture, and growth, demonstrating how women in any organization, particularly in science and scholarly communication, can lift each other up and drive meaningful change. We hope you enjoyed this conversation. Whether you're a journal, an academic society, a publisher, or a researcher, this is your chance to engage with curated content, share your perspectives, and stay ahead in this rapidly evolving field. Write to us. Let's move the conversation forward and shape the future of innovation together.